Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have an extraordinary guest on the show tonight, and I'm just going to read off a couple of things that on this guy's bio before I say his name. But he's an author, of a book that I have ready to read called "Leading Winning Teams." Achieve big league success, right? He's a World Series coach coaching for, I guess at the time was California Angels, which is now the LA Angels, I think, right? Then the Cleveland Indians, which is now the Cleveland Guardians, but a guy with World Series experience, right? Which is big. He's got the huge rings on his finger, which is awesome. The founder of Leadership and Team Development for organizations who want to grow and develop. The CEO of Athletic Influencer Marketing, educating student athletes to create their value in their brand, works heavily in the NIL space. Welcome, Trent Clark, to the show.
Jeff, man, it's fabulous to be here. Super excited about Are You Strong, what you're doing on your podcast. I have a podcast that I'm excited about with Winners Find a Way, and I love to guest in programs that are always helping people develop. And I know, Jeff, you're so committed to that as an
Yeah.
avid reader. And so I'm real thankful to be here, man.
Yep, and your book, we're going to get into that in a second. I love reading these kind of books. And if you look at the cover, I'm going to put it right up here on the screen because this is going to be on YouTube also. So people can see it, they can get it. And it says how teamwork, motivation, and strategy achieve big league success. And I'm going to say behind all this is a lot of mental strength.
Ooh, yeah.
A lot of mental strength. So before I start asking all kinds of questions, why don't you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a Michigan kid, grew up in the cold. I grew up about 20 minutes from Derek Jeter. I'm from Battle Creek. He's from Kalamazoo. There's a lot of good players out of Michigan and a lot of good players out of the Midwest. And I always loved the fact, like Dusty Baker was the guy, like, man, those Midwest kids, they got it kind of figured out. Like you got to be a grinder when you're a Midwest kid. You only play like 6
Cold.
months. You got, the winter. It wasn't like that when we were kids. Like you didn't have indoor complexes and everything else.
Right.
You built something in your basement to hit off the tee into a mattress or something. And so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great journey of 13 years in professional baseball, wife of 29 years, 5 children, longest journey. The leadership journey of starting 12 different companies as an entrepreneur, big help from the entrepreneurs organization that I joined as a member there. And it's been a wild ride, Jeff. And I've loved every minute of it, man. It's while it's been fun, it hasn't always been easy, but
No.
it's been a lot of fun.
Hey, nothing worth doing is easy.
That's right.
You know.
Amen.
So let me start grilling you. I got a bunch of
Sure.
questions here, man. I did a
Yeah.
little homework on you. Looked at your background, and I'm like, I don't think we have enough time to cover everything you've done.
Yeah.
Which is
Appreciate that.
which is amazing. But my first, let's go backwards, a little backwards in time, and talk about how this whole thing started. And you talk about baseball. Like, how did your college world, your college experience, really shape your early years of your career that really built the foundation of today?
Yeah. So, that was what I was dreaming about. My whole life, I wanted to be a college player. I wanted to be, get my college paid for. And I felt like that was a stepping stone to the major leagues. And I wanted to go that route. I didn't see myself as a high school draft. Nobody else did either. I'm 5'6", 170 pounds, like, so, man, and I was in the middle of this audit of excellence, right? I had just gone to 3 state championships in my high school. And then I went to 2 junior college. I played both tennis and baseball in college. So I went to the national championships twice in junior college in tennis. And then when I signed into Toledo, we were terrible. Like we were like these 2-3 years of just really below average. And amazingly, like we scored like 8.5 runs a game. Like we were an offensive powerhouse. I was a leadoff guy. So it was great for me. Runs scored, a lot of on base percentage. I was a great Moneyball guy back in the day before anyone knew Moneyball.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we gave up 11 a game. So we were a little low
Oof.
on pitching and defense, right? And so it was one of these things like, man, every game's 3.5, 4 hours, and it was just a grind. And I was like, oh my gosh. Then I go into the major leagues, and I went into baseball with the Detroit Tigers first. Then the strike hit. Tigers weren't very good. We had a lot of good athletes, but older team. And then I went over to Michigan State with Nick Saban and Tom Izzo in their first years, both of them at Michigan State as head coach. And Nick had been a head coach at Toledo, which is how I knew him. And then, man, it just progressed from there. Like those two guys, the excellence that I learned in about less than a year with
Right.
those two guys, then going back to Cleveland, and instantly I'm in 2 of the next 3 World Series.
Yeah.
So I got this span of like 11 years, and I go to 7 major championships, 3 state championships, 2 junior college national championships, and 2 World Series. And I am auditing excellence. And yet my college baseball experience was like grind, work, and I learned how to work hard. I didn't necessarily learn how to work smart. That was one of the excellence things I learned, is like you only got so many reps of energy you can give. You got to be very intentional about where you spend it. And I was like, I'll just work harder than everybody else. And I was doing things that were detrimental to my body, but people didn't know that then, no mark on anybody. I
Yep.
was just doing things that probably wasn't great. And I had to learn the hard way. I was probably setting myself back instead of pushing myself forward.
Now, what kind of things were you doing that you realized,
I
say,
was,
hey, man, I
I'm
shouldn't have
behind
done
neck
that?
pressing 160 pounds.
Oh,
You would never do that with any kind of rotator exposure. And I was exposed with 2 sports: as a tennis, because you serve
yep.
so much, and then as an outfielder, throwing the ball, massive, 250 feet on a line is a regular throw you got to make in college, right? You got to
Yep.
throw the snot out of the ball. And so,
Yeah.
and I'm playing in the cold, warming up, how you prep for games, how you stay warm. I think we overlooked that issue of that. And so, I was training really hard, not training very smart, looking back on it. And I was probably doing more damage to my shoulder, which ultimately my rotator was torn off the bone and
Oh,
was tacked back. So what happens when they tack it back is like 30-40% is torn off, hanging by a string. They stretch it, cut that off, get it back to the full point, and then they tack it. But like a
yeah.
big thick rubber band, when you
Yeah.
stretch it, now that ligament and tendon is, much thinner, much weaker.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
so it's not like, when people go, oh, you have surgery and come back. Listen, a lot of people don't come back from surgery,
It's
man.
never the
Like you
same.
hear about the ones that do, but a lot
Right.
don't.
Right. Right. So were you more in love with tennis or baseball?
Man, I loved baseball from the time I was a kid. I love, they were 2 very different games, right? Both of them very, very intellectual, very thinking man's game. I started tennis late, and tennis really taught me strategy because I wasn't as good physically as other players. But my benefit was I was quicker, I was faster than they were. And so I was like, man, if I can stay longer, Michael Chang style, I can
Yep.
wear players down. And I beat a ton of players that were way better than me, Jeff. I was just willing to stay longer and grind it out. And so that really helped me learn. The other thing I really encourage parents, Jeff, is get your kid in wrestling, swimming, tennis, an individual sport where you cannot go, oh, listen, man, I scored 4 touchdowns. I mean, we lost
Right.
by 20, but I did my job. Like
Yep.
the football team, baseball team, basketball team, I scored 25. I'm going to go out and have a great time because I did my job. You
Yep.
didn't play defense all night, Trent. Well, I don't want to be responsible for that. When you're an
Right.
individual, you're
It's
responsible
just
for all
you.
of it. When
Oh
somebody goes
yeah.
out there and whips your rear end, man, like, especially like in wrestling, man, like,
Yep.
there's nowhere else to look except in the
No.
mirror.
Yeah.
And that really taught me self-responsibility, right? I mean, I really learned like, whoa, man. There's a quote that I use now all the time. You are responsible for your results.
Yeah.
Not Jeff, like, oh, Jeff, hey, listen, could you get me to the big leagues, Jeff? Because if you did really well, I'd make it. That's not how it works.
No.
I am responsible. You are responsible for your results. I had to own that in individual sports because, man, I didn't know when I was 17 years old. And Todd Martin, I'm on his board now, and like he beat me 0-1, and I'm taking long changeovers so I can make sure we get over 60 minutes, right? I'm staying in points as long as I can, never to win them, but make him hit more balls
Yeah.
and just to make it last. And I go home like, Mom, I must be the worst player ever. This guy just beat me 0-1. didn't know he was going to be four in the world, right? I just
Right.
knew that like he was a lot better than me, and we were kids, and I was blessed, man. I mean, you got like John Smoltz, you got uh um like all sorts of players out of Michigan. Aaron
Yeah.
Crickstein, Mal Washington, Todd Martin. I
Yeah.
mean, the lefty from Atlanta, gotta let me draw a
Glavin.
blank on his name.
Was
Steve
Glavin
Avery.
lefty?
Steve Avery.
Avery.
I mean, there's tons of good ball players. Matt Mieske,
Yeah.
played a long time in the major leagues. He was a great model to follow. Like there were a lot of players, man, and you were
Yeah.
like, man, the comparison game got dark because you were like, man, I'm trying to be as good as this dude, and all
Yeah.
of them don't look like I do. So
Trent,
that was real.
you just said the word comparison. I think
Danger.
today it's the biggest mental challenge a lot of young athletes face. They're always comparing themselves to somebody else.
Yep.
Versus, like you said, look in the mirror, look at what you're doing, focus on that, get better. But it's like,
Yep.
whoa, this guy, that guy,
Yeah.
it's or how come I'm not getting that? Why aren't I getting that deal?
And by the way, that's for everybody. This is
Yeah.
for, moms. Oh, she's a
Yep.
better mom than I am. Look at she's going out, she's a part of the PTA and this and that. The comparison game is an absolute death trap. Like
Yeah.
there is no value in it and that's why I love Wooden, right? What is success? Success is being the best that you can be with what you have, right? Like this is where you need to be the best you can be. David Morehouse, former president of the Penguins, now works with the Steelers on strategy. Just talked to David last week. I was in Pittsburgh speaking, and he coined it in the book. I used his quote. He's like, man, like you got to be the best employee and the best at what you're doing right where you're at, and opportunity will come. But
Yeah.
everybody's so focused on, I'm going to be a great national sales director. Well, you first of all need to manage our local sales right now.
Yeah.
And you're not doing that well. And
Yeah.
so like you're not going to get a chance at the district or the regional spot if
Right.
you don't do
Right.
the work right now.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard to tell. People are just judging on where you're at right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. That and people aren't patient either. Patience is
Nope.
gone in
Nope.
sports. I was just watching some ESPN. They're talking about the football guys, the owners of the teams and the coaches now. Like they got to win now. Like
Yeah.
the poor quarterback on the Colts. He just got benched for Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Like let the kid
Anthony Richardson's
develop.
a great player, man. Like this
Yeah.
guy is incredible.
Yeah. Let him
And
develop.
what have you done for me lately, man?
Yeah. Yeah. Just let the
Yeah.
kid develop.
Yeah.
He's played a total of like
Well, that's
15
that
games.
that's the thing. I mean, is it fair that you brought this kid into the NFL? Everyone knows it's a massive jump.
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
we've watched all these athletes, these fabulous college athletes. Tim
Yeah.
Tebow, great college athlete. It's
Yeah.
a big jump to the
Yeah.
NFL. Like it's a massive deal. And these teams are now like, well, he's in. Like, whoa.
Yeah.
So are we all willing to sacrifice 2 years to, let them go through the growing
Yeah.
pains and the learnings
Right.
on field, not watching film, not getting all the reps in practice at game speed?
Right.
Because the beautiful thing about being the number 2 quarterback is you do practice against the number 1 defense. You
Yeah.
will see the speed. Your
Right.
receivers and your team may not be working at the speed of your number 1 offense,
Right.
but you're going to get the feel of that. And that's
Yeah.
really important. And I tell a lot of parents, man, like, my kid's the backup quarterback on the freshman team or the number 1 player on the B team. And I'm like, that's great. Like,
Yeah.
that's great. Like, gonna get all the reps, get the activity, not gonna
Yep.
get hit harder because the B players aren't as hitting as hard. And like, there's
Yeah.
all sorts of benefits in that. Like, learn the game,
Yeah.
study it, develop yourself in that space, and work for your shot to show people
Right.
what you got. And
Right.
it's not all bad, but you're right. Everybody wants it now. I do
Yeah.
too. I'm not any different, Jeff.
Yeah.
Like I want it now too. And
Yeah.
and my kids do too. And so I understand it. But
Yeah.
I do a talk called The Weight of the Ring. When people get the ring, they're like, man, that thing, dude, it's so like, how do you wear this thing? It's so
Yeah.
heavy. And I'm like, well, I had a couple starter rings because we lost the World Series twice with Cleveland, right? So, then we got the World Championship and they build this heavy ring for you. But it's also WAIT, man. Like championships aren't built overnight. Man,
Yeah.
you gotta work for it. Everything you said it in the beginning, everything we've ever got in life that we felt we really earned and deserved, we
Yeah.
worked hard for, man.
Yeah.
And it didn't come fast. Like we had to
Yeah.
do the steps.
Right. Didn't happen overnight. So challenges. What kind of challenges did you face? You growing up, you're a high school athlete, college athlete. Now you're trying to get into the major leagues. What kind of things were roadblocks and challenges for you?
Well, the first one is I don't look like everybody else, right? So that's a major challenge. I felt like my challenge was I could never be a big guy who could be lazy. I could never be the guy who just takes a rep off. My intensity centered around that. I put it in my mind at a very young age that there is a scout watching me in every moment. On the
Mm,
bench, running in and off the field, in the weight room, someone's always watching. And I felt that in my life. And I got used to no crowds ever bothered me, no audience ever bothered me because in my mind, there was always an audience of one, the one person I needed to get to the next level to say, yeah, I want you on my team, Clark. And you got what it takes. And
right.
so I never gave up an inch of ground for a moment, no matter how big the accolades came. I knew I didn't look like everybody else. And I'm 5 years ahead of Moneyball, man. So,
Yeah.
Moneyball would have probably changed my college career because they'd have been like, oh my gosh, this guy's a production king, steals bases, scores runs, on base
Yeah.
percentage off the chart, hits 300. Like, this is exactly who we need. And he struck out twice last year. Like,
Yeah. Now, what position were you?
I was a center fielder.
Center field. So you
Yeah,
had wheels.
yeah, I can run.
Yeah.
So, so that was the thing. So, but the challenge is that wasn't the era. The era is like, hey, we need someone 6'2", 210.
Yeah.
And that wasn't me. And if there's anything equal, if everything was equal, size was the great divider. Like,
Yeah.
yep, you're nice. And I think there's also biases, right? We all have biases. We all do things like, if I walk into the Michigan Hall of Fame dinner, it's like, oh, hey, who brought the wrestler, right? Like, no, man, I was a
Yeah.
baseball player. Like, and that's okay. Like, I probably look like a wrestler, and I probably even did more so then,
Well, you don't
strong.
have the ears of a
Nope.
wrestler.
What's that?
You don't have the ears of a
Yeah,
wrestler.
yeah, yeah. I have no cauliflower here, right?
Yeah.
So you're right. But I don't have the battle scars, man.
Yeah.
And but I understand it. Now, there's also bias too. If my name was Lopez or Gutierrez, and that was very well recommended, like, and accepted that, like, hey, small Latin guys, man, they good hands, quick, da 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 da, like they could play.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can play like that. But like that's not how it worked then.
Yeah.
And just like that was there's a scouting model that came into
Right.
fun. So I get it. Like it's just the way it is. And that doesn't make it wrong or right.
No.
It's just
No.
it's just people's perception. And it changes, right? We learn
Yeah.
and we read, and now people really change their perception of baseball because of a movie like Moneyball in the book.
Yeah.
And you realize, whoa, there's a lot more to this thing. Yeah, like there is. There's a lot
Yeah.
more to it. And man, when I hear people say baseball's boring, I freak out. I'm like, but, I terribly, I judge people's intellectual capacity right now. Like, you don't understand the game. Like, because
Yeah.
there is so much intensity going on, and how much change. You just brought it up offline here. After we've done these reps 100, 1,000 times,
Yeah.
how could Cole Garrett not cover first base on that ball? Like,
Yeah.
it's an instinct as a pitcher. It goes to the left side. You immediately start taking three
It's
hard
just
steps till
go.
it's
Yeah.
covered.
Right.
Like, that's the job. And no matter whether you make the league minimum or you're in the first year of the minor leagues because you've pitched enough that they've proved you got that
Yeah.
value, or whether you're making, 30 million and
Yeah.
$14,000 per pitch, right? Like, it does not matter. The fundamentals don't change.
Should
And
be the
every
same.
play, 8 people, 9 people all have a job to do, and they all need to
Yeah.
go do it. And if one doesn't do it, not good.
But you know what happened that night? It let the rest of the world, the average guy like me, right, who sits there and says, "Wait a minute, he's making 40 million a year. Well, how did it?" They're human. They're human. They're gonna
That's right.
they're gonna
He's
screw
a
up.
great athlete, and
Yeah.
air, and I remember in the '02 World Series, one of our little guys who was my hero, by the way, David Eckstein. David Eckstein doesn't look like a big league ball player. 5'7", 160 pounds, maybe dripping wet at the time.
Yeah.
Like, and he is an intense kid, man. He was just comes to play. He's a mind for the game. And this kid practiced every rep like it was game 7 of the World
Yeah.
Series. Every rep, like whether it was, February 1st and he's coming for
Yeah.
early work, or whether it's, August 20th and the 60th day in a row over, 90 degrees. It did not matter. He
And
was,
that's why he's there.
oh yeah, 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 no doubt.
Yeah.
And yet he just mucked it up big in the game 7. He tagged up, or he didn't tag up or something. Like, I can't remember what happened. It was a base running faux pas. And it was like
Yeah.
so not like him. And you're like, Dad, yeah, the kid's
Pressure.
actually human, right?
Yeah.
And
Human
this is the
pressure.
thing as coaches, like, there's not a kid in the world who goes, man, you know what I'm hoping today? Man, I hope that I really screwed up on the bases, or a fly ball comes to me and I drop it. Like,
Right.
man, that is not the
Yes.
mentality in front of 40,000
It's
people.
like Aaron Judge dropping that ball the other night. Like,
Yeah.
what the heck?
Yeah, like, listen, like, now, can you imagine the coach who stands on the top of the stair and unloads on him from the time he hits second base running in
Yeah.
about how bad of a play that was? Like, you don't think Aaron knows he just screwed up?
Oh, yeah.
Like this is his intent? Like, as parents, man, as dads, as
Yeah.
coaches and moms, and as we're getting in this thing, like, man, grace is a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, think where the kid's head is. And I know
Right.
we get frustrated because we think like, the kid's looking at cumulus clouds. He's not watching the ball or
Yeah.
whatever. But like, man, it's a tough game. It's a
Oh,
lot
yeah.
tougher game. It's taught me so much more about life than I ever thought. Both those two
Yeah.
sports were so good about life lessons.
Yeah. So think about pivotal moments, right? What kind of pivotal moments in your baseball career, helped you grow, not just as an athlete, but as a coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple things. I got hurt my senior year in high school, and man, I was just grinding to play, um, and I was really frustrated. I could see I had a lot of attention. Then I got hurt. We're playing in the state playoffs, and man, I just felt like the coaches had kind of written me off. Like, they weren't giving me a time. They knew I was playing at like, 75, 80%. And I'm grinding away. And I remember thinking, like, I got into it with one of my assistant coaches, and he's like, man, not about you, man. And I was like replaying in my mind what I just said out loud. And I was like, that's exactly what it sounds like. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that's not the guy I really want to be. And that was a hard lesson, slap in the
Like
face.
a wake-up call.
Oh, wake up call, man. Like, yeah, big wake up call, because you're so focused on what you're trying to do, get a scholarship, get an offer, lead the team, be a captain, be the right guy for everybody. And, you know, high school's also, I. It's
Yeah.
really easy to get into that. You're not very mature. I wasn't very mature, I don't think. In some ways I was, in other ways very immature. So that was a big one. I think, one of the other things was, out of high school, I really, the offers really never came. And I got a letter from the coach at Western Michigan University that was very close to me, Derek Jeter's backyard, Division I school in the MAC. And I really thought I'd play big time Division I, and I wasn't getting offers. And he wrote me a letter to tell me I just wasn't good enough to play at that level.
Really?
And I was like, damn, man, like he took the time to tell me
Yeah.
I'm not good enough.
Right.
And that was hard to take. 3 years later, I hit a walk-off against his team in the bottom of the ninth in Toledo. There may not have been a better moment in my life, right? Like,
Now,
it's one of those things, like,
did
you
you
just
run
want to
off
go,
pointing?
hey man, no, 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 I'm not that guy. But I would have loved to have been I told you so, right? But
Yeah.
not my place.
Hey,
I
but hey,
think
what's
my older brother was at the game,
yeah.
and I think he was happy to tell their coach a little bit of, boy, you sure, yeah, it was
Yeah.
a good move passing on that kid, blah, blah, blah. And
Hey, well, the saying will always go, actions speak louder than words,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
With
I think I had a great mentor, and he said, performance beats BS, right? I mean,
mm,
and there's a lot of talk, and that happens tons at the professional level. Like, everybody's talking about, oh, college, I was all Big 12, and then, like, listen,
that don't
show
matter.
me, make me a believer. We got
Yeah.
that comment, like, sing it, don't bring it,
Yeah.
or bring
Yeah.
it, don't sing it.
Yeah. Bring it, don't sing it.
Like,
Yeah.
you could talk all day.
Right.
Everyone will show out at that level. Like, you have to
Oh, yeah.
perform and prove it.
Proof's in the pudding.
Yeah.
Right? So how did you handle, you mentioned the injuries. How did you handle that? I know, I had a share of my own, and I just remember laying in the hospital, surgeries and stuff, and
Yeah.
sitting there wondering, hey, am I ever going to play? But I wasn't an NFL guy, but I was a college player, and I'm like, am I gonna get my spot back? Am I gonna be able to play again?
Yeah.
You thinking with these aspirations of major leagues, you got injuries going on. How did that affect you mentally?
Yeah, mentally, like that's probably the toughest part, right? The toughest part is, I've got a story, a racket that I'm running in my mind all the time on this, right? Like, well, I'm not as big as everybody else, and blah 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 blah. And so I think the mental challenges that I always faced was I'd give a little boo-hoo, a little woe is me, which was, man, how am I going to go out there and compete at 80%? I'm already giving up 30% of physical capacity to people, right? And so that knocks me down another level. And what am I going to do? How that served me was, man, from the moment I got over my little pity party, which was never more than probably 24 hours, um, I I sat and said, "Hey, what's everything I can do while I'm down?" And man,
Mm,
that's really the setback to stardom kind of mentality, right? Is when you get athletes, and I saw this at the major league level all the time. You get athletes that haven't been down. They've been playing their sport for 12 years in a row. There's never a break. And all of a
right.
sudden, you're having a surgery and you're going to be out for 4, 6 months. Man, as a strength coach, I'm going to take you and I'm going to make you another human being by the time you
Yeah.
come back. And you are already a superb human being at this level. But now they're going to dive into, how am I mentally prepared? How am I physically prepared? How am I emotionally prepared? How am I morally prepared? John Wooden, he just coined the fact that you got to be all four and you got to be right on this, man, and get it all right. It's like a system that all comes up together. You can't be failing in one of those
No.
areas. So it's like, oh, well, you know what? The emotional's not going to be. I see this all the time. You saw it in the NFL over the weekend. I watch these guys, something goes wrong, they throw their helmet
Oh
like they're
yeah.
a 4-year-old throwing a
Right.
fit. I
Yeah.
remember Bosa did it in the playoffs like 2 years ago, and he
Yeah.
threw his helmet down and got a penalty. I'm like, hey man, what are you,
Yeah.
like 6?
Right.
Like, you're a professional athlete, and I know this is intense, but we've got to have a level of poise here, man.
Yeah.
And I know how you feel on the inside. Like, I get it.
Yep.
Exterior, you cannot show that
You
and put
can't
your
lose your
team
cool.
behind.
You can't lose your cool.
Can't
You
can't do
know?
it, man. Like, you've got to have poise. No matter how the fire burns inside, there is a time and a place. And listen, you can go home and, go take your axe and cut down a tree and work it all out.
Yeah.
Cuts that tree up and down on your own
Yeah.
private back, 20 acres. Like, go do that,
Yep.
man. Like, go work
Yep.
it out. But this is not the forum for it. You've got to show that you've got it together. You're a pro. So when
Yep.
these setbacks come, man, I watched athletes all of a sudden. What happens is you start getting very good at technique because you watch all the video. Hey, I don't need to watch video. I'm a 15-game winner. I'm this and that. And
Yep.
now all of a sudden it's like, I can't go back and have this injury again. I can't get this setback again. So they're
Right.
watching every little thing they do. The coach is sitting with them. See what happens here? See where you dropped your elbow lid? See how that
Yep.
wrist turns a little bit? See where your fingers are apart instead of together? Every little thing is detailed
Detail.
out. And they come back going, oh, I used to throw 96. Now I throw 99. Because I helped them put 25 pounds on their lower half.
Yep.
Like, you are going to squat like you've never squatted. Walking lunges. We're going to do crossover lunges. We're going to build your lower half up than you've never seen. We're going to transfer that power from the ground up and take a lot
Yep.
of pressure off your legs because you never got it right because you didn't want to do the work in college. You were 6'5" and could strike out anybody. Now you need to be not 6'5" and 195. You need to be 6'5", 230 and
Yeah.
really carry that. You don't have to run. You don't have to carry that weight all around. You're a pitcher. Go in and work your power position because it's going to save you on technique. And so they all of a sudden got all that together and became a very formidable athlete across the board, physically, mentally, emotionally, morally. And now all of a sudden, watch out, because they always had talent.
Yeah.
Now you put that with the talent, the setback to stardom is super effective for people with talent, people who will take that advice and work at it. They can go far on a setback because it's the only time they ever get that moment. Because the greatest,
Yeah.
everybody wants them to play. Oh, you got to play for us. We'll pick you
Yeah.
up, Jeff, and play on our team. So like, it's no break. Now
Yeah.
you've got a break and you've got to actually take that time and maximize it. And that's how I handled injuries, performance.
Yeah.
That was huge for the setup.
Yeah. Take that setback and focus on getting better.
Yep.
That's awesome. All right. So major league coaching, right? I can't even imagine the pressure that's on you when you're there. Talk about mental pressure. But what's it like, to be a major league coach? You're with the best of the world, the best ever. Yeah, around the entire, every continent out there. What's it like being around those guys and then having to coach them?
Oh, well, it's the, it's literally like the 0.5%, right? They are unbelievable. They're unbelievably skilled. They're unbelievably focused. It is hyper learning 400 level.
Yep.
It's a great environment to be in if you're a fast learner. If you can't learn fast, you cannot survive, right?
Mm,
And I've had three kind of areas I've spent a lot of time in: entrepreneurship. I've got a bunch of clients who are special forces and professional athletes. And
okay.
these are hyper learning environments. And special forces, if you don't learn and adapt quickly, people die. Like there
People
is
die.
and you're trained by the best in the world, and you got to qualify to be trained at that level, right? So there's all these things that have to happen. And same thing with pro sports. Like you have the best of the best. Everybody checks their ego because we're in alignment to do one thing, which is win the championship, win a
Yeah.
world title. And so when everybody does it and they're able to check that leader really helps them do that and gets them to check that and levels them out. Like we're in it together. Let's stay focused on the prize. We'll have 25 different roles for all these players, and know your role. And your role will change, right, Jeff? Like
Yeah.
you're the backup second baseman today. You're a utility guy ready to go whenever it happens. And then all of a sudden someone goes down and you're the starting third baseman.
Yeah.
Gonna play every day. And you're like, oh, well, I really haven't prepared my body to play every day. I'm getting so sore. I'm dead after 4 days. Like, well, what have you been doing, man? Like
Yeah.
we've always have to prep for what's next. And
Mm,
and the athletes at that level understand the physical, mental, emotional, and moral prep that has to go. Now, they don't always get it, right? Like I said, they'll fall short in one of those and it'll destroy them, right? You see the
yeah.
emotional guy who throws a fit and he ends up on Sports Center embarrassed and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And you see the moral deal with drugs and
Yeah.
steroids and you know convicts, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
And they fall.
Yeah.
And if you
It's,
physically can't make it and you physically can't prepare, your body is your whole asset. The moment it doesn't work,
you're
no one
done.
has any need for you at all.
Yeah. And they
Zero
don't care who
value.
you are. They don't
Zero
care who you
value.
are.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's zero value just like that. Like,
Yeah.
oh man, yesterday I was valuable and now I'm not.
Yeah.
And
You,
then and if you mentally can't maintain and manage the stresses and be mentally prepared for what's about to happen, you won't make it
yeah.
either. So, that's the whole thing. That's the grit formula, right? Like you
Yep.
can have all sorts of talent, but if you don't have the effort to put into every rep all the time, be prepared, da 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 da, the quotient goes bunk, right? A nine talent with a two effort is 18. So you bring that down, right? And then so their skill is an 18, and then 18 times a two is 36. This is a scale from 1 to 1,000. If you have anyone under a 200, you can't use them. They will be absolutely a cancerous challenge for your
Ugh.
clubhouse, for your team. They will not add value and contribute to your team. In fact, they'll do the exact opposite. They'll be detrimental to your
They'll
group.
bring other people down.
They'll steal and take away. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so even any hiring, you can run that formula on anything. What's the best person I can hire over here at UPS, and what's his effort level? And like, oh, his effort right now is, his as I see him as a driver right now, he's a 5, but his effort's a 10. 10 and
Yeah.
50, 50 times 10, that's 500. Like that's great. You could build on that.
Yeah.
That's Tom Brady.
Yep.
Five professional player, 5 on that level coming out of college. University of Michigan, good player, but they don't see him at that pro level at that. But he's a 10 effort guy. So he's a
Yeah.
50. Yeah, but then a couple years and he's a 6. A couple more years at 10 effort, every time he's a 7. And all of a sudden he starts winning rings all over the place and he's a
Yeah.
700, then he's an 8.
Yep.
Probably finishes as a 9 as a player, and he's a 900 all day long. And like 900s are goats, right? There's no
They
900s.
just keep growing. But I think the difference, Trent, is those guys want to grow too.
Yeah, they want, and he understands the whole thing, man. He
Yeah.
understands the team. He understands, like, you talk to his teammates, man. Like, dude, they can't wait to tell their grandchildren about how I played with Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know or
Yeah.
not, Jeff, but like, I played with Tom Brady. Like,
Yeah.
it was incredible. Like,
Oh
and
yeah.
this is kind of teammate he was. Let me show you the text I saved from
Yeah.
1999. You know, like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, they're like, like this is who he
Yeah.
was, man. Just
That's
like a
funny.
guy who's trying to build everybody else around him and takes the responsibility. Like, I got to lead.
Yeah, he's got some pretty funny commercials out there right now too.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he's good.
So coaching, right? You're up in the major leagues. Challenges are challenges, but as you go up in the levels of professionalism, the challenges got to be bigger. What kind of challenges did you face as a major league coach?
Well, the first challenge I faced was I was a young major league coach, right? Like my first major league coaching job, I was 25 years old. So my first World Series, I was coaching in the major leagues at 25 years old. And so, I'm coaching Eddie Murray, Dave Winfield. I mean, these guys are
That's sick.
legends, man. Like, I
Yeah,
watch these guys as kids going, "Oh my
yeah,
gosh, this guy Eddie Murray's a wrecking crew, man!" Like, and now I'm watching how he prepares and how he's. In fact, I led the TEDx talk with him about a moment in time, right, 1995, as he steps to the plate. Extra innings, and these are the guys you can count on. They're prepared. They prepared their whole life for this moment. They know exactly what's about to happen, and they've done it. And the challenge I had was like, the coaches are like, "Hey, why would Dave Winfield listen to you?" And I'm like, well, because I know things he doesn't know. I know how to physically and mentally prepare him for what's about to happen. And he may or may not have had that information yet. And
yeah,
I've got the degree to help him stay on the field
right.
longer. And the money got better. I mean, like, I assume his best year with the Yankees when he was a superstar, he probably he may have made more in his last 3 years on an
Yeah,
average than
yeah,
his early years because the pay changed, right?
yeah,
And he had still value. He was still a major contributor. I mean, I watched Oral Hershiser work his tail off to come back from that shoulder shrinkage,
yeah,
and working with him and watching his preparation. He was so good across all four. And man, he just stayed in the game. I mean, Greg Maddux made $10 million when he was 40 years old. He's
yeah,
like, yeah, I'm not what I was when I was 25, but what other job could I do in the world and make $10 million at 40 with my training? Like,
yeah,
I'm not going to some other company and go, well, Jeff needs help in his business. Hey, can you pay me 10 million? Like,
right.
you're not
Yeah,
paying him 10 million.
yeah,
So, like, there's a real value in longevity, right? There's a
yeah,
wisdom. And so the people who stayed were lifelong learners. And so they were ready to learn. So we'd have great conversations, and I'm not coming at them telling them, hey, this is what you need to do. I'm not shitting on them. You should
right,
do this and you should do that.
right.
I'm sharing experiences and sharing the
Yeah,
physiology of the matter and
yeah,
how it's going to benefit them. And that was a different time because
yeah,
one of the biggest challenges at that moment was, strength and conditioning was new to baseball. It was like, oh, you're going to grow big and tight and you're not going to be able to swing it. And I'm like, McGuire and Canseco seem to be doing all right.
yeah,
Like, these guys are mountains of men
yeah,
working their butt off and stronger, and they hit bad, they hit good pitches and miss them and still hit the ball 390,
yeah,
450 feet. And those are home runs in most parks. So, it's amazing. And, I just happened to be watching the World Series, the playback of Gibson's famous home run against the A's. And, people still talk about the ball that Canseco hit that day, the grand salami that they said, like, dude, thank goodness no one was in front of that ball that he hit, because he hit the thing so
so
hard.
hard. Yeah,
Oh, he was just like, he goes, I've never hit a ball harder than that. And I'm like, man, and I watched Barry Bonds hit one in '02 that I was like, holy crap. I mean, Percival was like, wow. Like, I've
yeah,
never seen a ball come out that hard before. That felt
yeah,
like he got to the stands in less than about a second out
right.
deep in right center. And then I watched Mickey Tettleton hit a ball that in second base, he hit one in Tiger Stadium, old Tiger Stadium in 1994. You remember Mick, a little
Yeah,
league, and low hard fastball in, and he just went down. The second baseman jumped for it. And it just kept going, and it hit the facing of the deck, that overhang in old Tiger Stadium, and
yeah,
almost rolled back to second base. And I'm like, I don't know what the exit velocity was on that, because no one was testing it,
yeah.
but it looked like a freaking laser coming out of
The
there.
rocket.
And I'm just thinking, like, oh my gosh, thank God that didn't hit the pitcher. Like, you're a dead man. Like, this thing is crazy how hard guys can hit the
Yeah.
ball.
So you mentioned you're 25 years old. You're in the major leagues as a coach. You're hanging around a lot of egos, right?
Oh yeah, yeah,
Big egos,
yeah,
and big paychecks.
yeah,
How did you build any type of rapport with these guys to get them to
yeah,
trust you and what you're
yeah.
doing and telling them?
Yeah, so really helped first that I played. that really helped. They knew that I'd gone through it. They knew that I was a Division I college player. That mattered. They knew that I was physically fit and strong. I led by example. That was really important. That I'm not going to ask you to do something I wouldn't do myself. um, that I had a knowledge about what was about to happen. And I'm going to prepare you physically for what's about to happen. And you don't really know what's going to happen, right? You have to be prepared for a lot of different things that can happen, but your body should be physically prepared because you don't want to eliminate yourself from the opportunity. And I had to do a lot of educating on the coaching staff because they were like, we never lifted when we played. And
Right.
why would we do it now? And I'm like, well, what was your off-season job? Well, I worked on the railroad. And I'm like, so you slung a hammer and carried railroad ties? And they're like, yeah, that's what I'm like, okay, we just signed this dude for 1.75 million. Like, he doesn't need to work in the off season, right? He just bought a $150,000 car. And it's all I can do to get him to a place where I'm physically going to challenge him for 90 minutes a day during this off season to get him physically prepared, mentally prepared for what's going to happen when he returns here and keep his body healthy. You had to go do this thing, carry ice up flights of stairs in New York City and all these things that the old timers would talk about. I'm like, and I would say like, hey, you think this kid survives on the railroad? He wouldn't survive a day on that job. Like, yeah, I get it, man. Like you just got $1.75 million, man. You didn't make that your whole career. So
That's nuts.
like he's just a draft choice. He's not even in a league yet,
Right.
and I'm like, it's everything we're gonna do to physically charge him to get his body physically prepared for what's about to happen. And that's my job. And they
Right.
got that. They understood it. They understood. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, all right. And I remember, golly, the former manager of the Twins was the little guy. He was a little infielder, really good player. Um, and I'm trying to think of who he was in 2002. And I was staying at the hotel in Anaheim because I didn't live in Anaheim. I lived in uh, Phoenix, and so I was staying at the hotel, and we sat down at breakfast, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, man, I so should have been doing the strength and conditioning when I was a player. I mean, how much it would help me with the soreness,
Yeah.
with the recovery, with this." I was like, "Yeah, man. I mean, this is kind of where the new thing is, and
Yeah.
you got to be prepared." And he really embraced it. And I
Yeah.
think, as a manager and a leader, you have to support new things that you see
Yeah.
help players and can add value. And
Yep.
he really did, and he was ready for that. And he brought a Twins team that no one expected much of a long way. And yeah, it was impressive leadership.
Right. Well, you just said the word value, right? Right, Trent? And I'm going to guess that, when you're a 25-year-old kid, sometimes you're wondering, like, what kind of value am I bringing to this world, right? But once these mega star athletes, they start seeing the value you're bringing to them, they forget you're 25.
Yeah, they don't care.
They don't even
Yeah, they
look
don't.
at your 25. They're like, holy crap, this kid's got his shit together.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
That's
a
big.
big thing. That's a big thing that it's hard to get people to respect your opinion, to listen to you. So you have to do a little bit of sales work, right? Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is why you should be listening to me. And here's people that have, like, here, we've helped work with them and worked really hard, and they become very famous for that. Like, and
Yeah.
that may not be your goal. Well, they've made a lot of money. That may be your goal. They've made their parents really proud. They've got their starting position, and it's not only is it hard to get there, but man, no one quits that job.
Yeah.
Someone's coming to take your job all the time. So everyone's gunning for your job. You're the number one player in a city at this position, and you're one of only 30 that start in
Yeah.
that position in the league. And so there's a bunch of people that gunning for your job. And so no one goes, "Oh, you know what, Jeff? I don't even want this $8 million contract. You can have it."
Yeah.
Like, no one's giving up their job. They are
No.
all there and working hard to stay. And
Yeah.
it is tough to stay because you don't get any younger. So you better
No.
get wise because you got to play against that you don't move as
Yeah.
quickly as everybody else and you don't do this as well as everybody else. So,
Yeah.
the learning and hyper learning becomes really important, that you've got to soak that in. You've got to be a sponge and take it in.
Yeah. Father time always ends up on top.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I
I've
mean?
never seen him lose yet.
No. So Major League Baseball ends. right?
Yeah.
And now you're a leadership expert. Talk about how, your journey of sports, college, major leagues help prepare and propel you into what you're doing now as a leadership expert.
Yeah, so I didn't move that directly after college. I worked for one of my mentors. I worked in the shipping business. I had sold a trucking company and done pretty decently there, had a little runway. I worked for a fellow friend in Chicago, took me to Chicago, got involved in shipping. Man, I made some decisions that were questionable, Jeff, and I didn't position my family very well for '09, not anticipating that crash. So, at the end of '09, I'm standing in a line of unemployment getting food stamps for my kids. So, 5 years before that, 2005, we were a couple games away from the World Series again against the White Sox. I'm thinking I'm going to my fourth World Series. Fast forward 5 years after a major economic crisis, I've been unemployed now for over 6 months. And even though I've sold companies, even though I've done decently in a lot of things, cash poor, man. And I am literally on government assistance. So I fortunately, put my head down, went to work. I got a great deal, got back in the game, had a new company I started, did pretty well and survived. But after a couple different company starts and not really having a passion for those businesses, I went through I went through a book called The Purpose Driven Life. And I just thought, man, this is what I love. I love to lead. I love to help people get better. I love to draw people in to where their superpower is and show everybody what God's given you, man. Like this is why I think the gifts were given to people. It absolutely terrifies me, Jeff, right now, how many people I meet, especially young people who've been given gifts and they're like, yeah, I'm not going to show everybody. I'm just keeping it for me. And I'm like, man, that is not the design, man. Like, I don't want to do this because I'm a little embarrassed that I'm better at everything than everybody else. I'm like, man, I don't get it. You're like this fabulous pianist at 12 years old, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do it. Like, man, you get accolades, like people love to come and watch you do this. You give them like hope and there's
Yeah.
all these things that come from watching you just just show people your gift and they're like, no, I'm not going to do
Mhm.
it. It's I don't understand it, Jeff. It's confusing to me and we're not doing a very good job in my opinion if we're not getting these kids into a spot where they should enjoy and be thankful and grateful for that gift and take that gift to the highest level they can.
Yeah.
And I see it every day that people are just like taking their gift and flush it, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, why? Oh, it's not what I want. But they don't
Yeah.
really know what they want, but they don't want this. And I'm like, well, maybe you do this until you figure out what you want. Like because it gives a lot of people value. It
Yeah.
contributes to a greater society, and they're not
Yeah.
doing.
One of the things I try to instill on the younger crowd that I come around, because obviously I'm not part of the younger crowd anymore,
Yeah,
is chase the feeling. If they're an athlete, right?
yeah,
And you know what it's like to be on the field. Like you got that feeling like this is the greatest thing ever, right? And when you're off the field, you don't have that feeling.
yeah,
And if you're a college or professional athlete, you know what I'm talking about. If you're
yeah,
not an athlete, you have no idea what I'm talking about.
yeah,
But find whatever that is that's going to give you that same feeling and chase it.
yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
it's a great point, Jeff, because like people come to me all the time and go like, "Man, you played two sports at a Division I school. Didn't you want to go out with your friends and party?" Like I spent like I think like 5 or 6 quarters on the president's list, which means I got a 4.0
Yeah.
while I played two sports, worked out, ate well, trained my butt off, helped my teams the best I could, do all those things. Like, man, I don't feel like I missed anything. I
Yeah.
missed social time with at the bars. Like, that's never gave me the feeling of
Yeah.
going out and accomplishing and winning something with my
Right.
teammates and being a part of something great, man. Like, that was not the pain exchange I was looking for, man. I
Right.
was looking for the pain exchange of discipline, the pain of exchange of how I could push myself to be the best I could be. And man, there was just we talk about personal bests, like, man, it's exhilarating to go like, man, I just did that. Like I've been training for that for
Right.
3 months, 3 years. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Like, in the day you get it, like, what you've accomplished. You don't need to explain it to anybody else.
Yeah.
That feeling of like, man, of commitment, there's a big difference between being interested and committed, man.
Oh yeah.
Interested
Oh
is
my
talking
God.
about it. Committed is doing it.
Right.
If you're going to get committed, man, people in this world, we're looking for people that are committed,
Got to be all in.
all in, man.
All in. So talk about that, the pain exchange. I know that's in your book. It's a big part of your whole philosophy around what you're doing and teaching. Talk about
Yep.
that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my TEDx talk, I really wanted to focus in on this pain exchange, right? There's pain in life, and I don't know anyone, Jeff, especially our age, right? Like, you're probably not my age yet, but like,
I'm probably older than you.
oh yeah, well, you're looking good, brother, man. And so, this pain exchange is, you're gonna have pain, and it's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. You choose. It's your choice. You're gonna have pain. I don't know anyone who's immune. I haven't met anybody go, oh yeah, hey, Jeff, I've lived this awesome life. It's been totally pain free. It's been you're like, really? Like, first of all, I don't believe you. Like, right? Second of all, that there's this exchange that we're gonna have, and you got to choose the exchange. I want to choose the pain of discipline because it's an acute pain, which means short term. You and I go out and we want to play on a football team, and we're hill running all summer when it's 95 degrees, and we're doing rucksack runs and everything
Yeah.
else till we puke, right? Some days. And we're like going, what the heck are we doing, man? This is hurt. I don't know if I can do this tomorrow. I'm so sore. But 2 days later, like, we heal and we're ready to go again and we get
Yep.
at it, right? The pain of regret is chronic. It lasts a lifetime,
It
man.
lasts forever.
Forever.
Disciplines, the pain of discipline is short term. And like you said, you forget about it. 2 days later, let's go.
Hey,
You
have you
know?
ever heard anybody, Jeff, as a guy who's been as competitive as you as and won some championships? Have you ever heard a guy or woman, man, who won a championship went, oh my gosh, you know what? The coach taking us through all those 2 days and all that extra work, it wasn't worth it.
No, you don't,
I've
you don't,
never
even
heard,
re- you don't even
I've
remember it.
never heard anybody
No,
say it. And in
no.
fact, when you go back to the 20-year reunion of your championship team,
Right.
everyone goes, oh man, how about Mr. Jackson and making us do those darn hill runs till we were freaking. Remember that one time we both puked?
Yeah.
I couldn't get to the can because you had it.
Yeah.
Like, and you're
Yeah.
like, and you're laughing about it now,
Yep.
but it's remembered 20 years as a fun moment in what got us to where we wanted to get.
Right.
Not, oh, I'm so disappointed I ever did this.
Right.
That's never the
No,
commentary, man.
no, nobody ever remembers the negative. They don't remember the pain. They just remember the winning.
That's right,
You
because it
know,
was all
you're,
worth it. It's
yeah. Oh my
all
God.
worth it.
And you sign up next year to do it again.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's the Happy Gilmore, man.
Yeah.
364 days to try out, and he gets in the cage and he's ready to take balls off his chest, right? Like, I'm gonna toughen up and I'm gonna get ready, man. And like, this is what I
Yeah.
want. And willing to deal with the pain for what I want, right? And it's
Yeah.
just this is what, but man, I can take myself back to being a 17-year-old boy making a terrible decision in relationships and not treating a friend well, and causing a severed relationship the rest of my life. And man, I'd like to just shake that 17-year-old
Yeah.
kid. Like, how could you be so arrogant? How could you be so harsh, with your words, and be a person like that, that maybe you didn't know it in the moment, but like looking back, like, it was really an attack of the heart, and words cut, right? And that, I mean, that could, I could cry as
Yeah.
far as the pain of that regret of going back and doing something different. And that's 35 years old, man, 37
Yeah.
years old now. And like,
Yeah.
it's not like it's forgotten. I just don't want to
No.
think about it every day. And I don't,
Yeah.
but that regret's real, man. And
Yeah.
the pain of something I ever won, I don't remember it.
Right.
Short term,
And,
man.
and you think about that. You're a young kid. You're immature,
Yep.
and you probably didn't have the right people around you to coach you, to guide you. Who knows? But what happens? That makes you a better what? a better person now, a better coach, a better
Yeah, I mean,
father, a
it's
better
going to shape
friend.
me. It's going to
Yeah.
shape me,
Yeah.
right? Good or bad, for good or
Yep.
bad. It's going to shape me. I know a lot of people, Jeff, that their pain of regret as young adults, and I have that too. But the pain of regrets of a young adult has eaten them up so much
Yeah.
that pain is so formidable that they might do a job, but at 2 or 3 o'clock, they go to their local watering hole.
Oh
They
yeah.
will drown that pain
Yep.
into the evening, and
They numb themselves.
the ramifications of their current actions are
Yep.
causing all sorts of ripple effect, and if not tsunami waves, but it's just further deep into regret. But anything to get that pain away for a few hours. And the challenge is you got to wake back up with you. And it's so disappointing and it's so unhealthy, Jeff, that it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's where we got to have grace and starting with for ourselves, right? Like we
Yeah.
just got to have that position of how do we navigate this space and do it well and not face these challenges in our life, because there are moments
Yeah.
in time and carrying them never healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So your book, who is your book? Why did you write it? And who should be reading it?
Yeah, I wrote the book because there's so many life lessons from athletics. I've always said that. There's just been so many life lessons. And the second one was there's really a lot of smart, educated people who love sport. They loved it, and maybe they weren't great at it, but they enjoyed it. They got a lot of lessons from it. And then I've got a lot of players that came to me going, "Man, I'm 29 years old now and it's over for me and I don't have any skill set." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, what do you mean you don't have any skill set?" And they're like, "Well, I've just been playing baseball for the last 11 years." And I'm like, "No, no, no. You have like time management. You have like hyper learning. You have adaptability beyond comparison. Like you're coachable. We could teach you anything. I could teach you how to walk over at the Chinese place and learn how to make food the best in the world. I could teach you how to rock climb a mountain. I could teach you how to do high level accounting and forensic accounting. Like you could learn almost anything because you're this hyper learner." And they're like going, "Oh man, I don't have any skills." So I'm like, "That's crazy. You have tons of skills that will add tons of value to organizations, and you have tons of leadership capability too. And you've got to understand how those translate." And so I wanted people to understand how those things they learned among sports and teams, and it doesn't have to be sports either, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, if it could be first chair on the trombone, like,
Yeah.
whatever organization you were involved with, there was coaching and there was discipline and there was, I had a great question on a call yesterday. This book club had a good question. Like, we see all these leaders from the military or athletics. Can someone lead if they didn't get in those environments? Like, of course you can. Of course you can get that, but you got to get around excellence, whether that's excellence in the culinary world or excellence in music or excellence in mathematics. Like, it doesn't matter
Yeah.
where it is, but you got to get around those excellence of where you want to hone your skill and see
Yeah.
exactly what it looks like and go, "Hey, I can model that." Because I love the quote from The Edge, the movie with Sir Anthony Hopkins. The bear's chasing him, and he's like, "We're gonna kill the bear, right? That's what we're gonna do." And he's like, "You can't kill the bear. Like it's a bear. Like we're not gonna kill
Yeah.
the bear. What one man can do, so can another." And he's just like, pumping this guy, Alec Baldwin, young Alec Baldwin, and he's like, "What one man can do, so can another." And he's just like beating it into him, verbally. And listen, people have come before you and they've done it. This is what great mentorship's about, right? They've done it and they know how to do it and they're willing to teach you. And if you're willing to learn, go in there and get at it.
Man, I love what you said, and I never even thought of this. Athletes and hyper learning skills. You're just opening my eyes now after all these years. I'm thinking, going backwards in time, thinking you were thrust and forced into you got to learn now. You got to learn quick. You got to
Yeah.
learn fast, and you
Yeah.
can't wait.
No
You know,
wait. There's no
no,
patience, right?
no
There's
patience.
no patience in the game.
No,
Brandon, you
no.
described it, right? Like, hey, I know we
That's
finished
big.
like fifth last year and we traded our three best players, but Jeff and Trent, listen, we expect you back in the World Series this year. Like, well, who's replacing our fifth best players?
Yeah,
Well, we've got a couple young kids who don't have any experience, but a lot of
yeah,
potential. You guys
yeah,
can get them better and do it. You're like, wait, what? And the
Yeah,
expectation is fifth or higher, right? You'll do better than we did last year. And it's
yeah,
like, well, wow, this is
yeah.
what you got to do for us. And so
Well, you
like
know what
all the
potential
chips are
means, right?
gone.
What does potential mean?
Yeah, yeah. For gone conclusion. Potential?
Yeah, what does that mean? You haven't done anything yet. You
Yeah,
know?
man. I mean, it's like, yeah, we see that all the makings are there
Yeah,
to be at that next level, but they've never proven it at that next level.
right, right. They never put it together yet,
Not yet.
you know? So Trent, you speak to corporations, you speak to teams, you work with athletes. Someone's going to be listening to this show and say, I got to talk to this guy. I want to maybe hire him to our organization. I want to
Yeah.
maybe hire him as a coach. How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can go to trent-clark.com or they can go to leadershipity.com. There's always like fill outs how they can, reach out to me, get a meeting with me. Literally, I give my cell phone all the time. My cell phone is 480-710-3712. Everyone goes, man, dude, you've been in pro sports. You give your cell phone away? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah,
People don't call me being jerks. And if they do, I block
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Stop selling
You
me
could
stuff.
pick it up or
You know?
hang it up. Same thing.
Yeah, like listen, like I block
Yeah,
you, I'm gonna
yeah,
block you. So like no, nothing personal, but like don't be an idiot, right? So and people don't. People are great. So like I
yeah.
don't worry about it. And it's a great way to get a hold of me, Trent at leadershipity.com, and I answer my own email.
Cool. So what's next for you? I mean, you've done so many things. What the heck is next?
Yeah, so I'm really excited about I'm involved with a group where we have a PE firm and we buy into companies and we buy best in class baby boomer companies, primarily in the space of like, services, right? Plumbing, um, electrical, HVAC, and
Yeah,
we're really focused in on those services that are always in need, right? And we're looking for these baby boomers who have been in the business a long time, and we can upgrade those companies with a lot of technology, with a lot of technique that maybe they haven't done yet, either due to monies or whatever challenge, right? But the bigger thing I'm excited about is we take young folks between 25 and 32 years old who want to run a company, and we put them into a program of leadership. And they have about a 12 to 18-month program to prove their merit, kind of like a SEALs program
yeah,
for CEOs. And if they can get through, they become the president of one of these companies we buy. And then their goal is, with my coaching and help in our system, where we help companies double their EBITDA in half the
yeah.
time, we help them double that brand. And when they do double it, they get equity in the company. So they're
That's
an owner in
beautiful.
that company. So we're all driven for performance. We're all driven for the value and how we can create that. And there's a lot of support for the young talent, but we take talent before they're, maybe beat up by corporate or wherever they have. And we show them the way that we want to develop them and grow them as leaders.
Yeah,
And then we help them lead.
that's
Pretty
awesome.
awesome.
Yeah, first of all, it sounds like fun.
Yeah.
You know
Oh,
what I
I
mean?
mean, I love it, man. Like
Yeah,
I love it because it is action on the 400 level, right? And of course, there's a lot of accountability around it. Like you really have to show up and perform
yeah.
at the highest level. And that's not easy, right? Never
No,
easy.
no, no. Well, Trent, listen, we've been going for an hour here, talking about some really cool stuff. Is there anything I haven't asked you yet that you think we should touch on before we wrap it up?
Oh man, you've touched on a lot of stuff. It's pretty
Yeah,
good. I would say the one thing that probably people want to look for that maybe they haven't, and I want who we surround ourselves with is a big deal, as you know, Jeff. And
yep,
so I want ACEs, and I have like an acronym, and I have the pyramid of leadershipity, which is all those itties we want in our leaders. Which the first thing I'll tell people is you're not going to be great at all of them. You want to get someone on your team. If I'm not great at something, I want Jeff Durr on my team because I know he's awesome at that, and
yep,
he's my trusted guy. When this comes, I'm like, Jeff, you got to lead. I may be responsible for it in the end, but I'm running you at point on this because
yep,
I'm tapping you on shoulder. Hey, Jeff, you're in. Get in the game, man, because this is your chance to shine. This is what you do better than everybody else. And there's no better person on our team, including me, to be able to do it, because you're going to run circles around how well you do this, because I'm not good at it anyway, but
Yeah.
I am responsible for it. So I'm surrounding myself with people in that. So in this pyramid, there's foundational things, of course, the cornerstones of humility and integrity, which is so important in leaders. But the second level of folks is, my ACEs are acronym for CARD. I want coachability, I want adaptability, and I want them to have responsibility and take that responsibility.
Mm.
And when they do that, when someone says, hey, listen, I'm ready to learn, how could I be better? Let's review the tapes. Coachability is at the 400 level, and we can keep getting better with that person. They're going to keep growing, lifelong learners. Adaptability, I'm willing to do the work that if we have to change and shift, I still know how to run that skill. I still know how to do that. I still know how to sell a different way, even though we can't sell the old way where I was best at. I got to adapt and sell this way, and that's okay. I've got to do the accounting. I've got to run a new software because the old software is old and it's been replaced. Adapt. You got to be able to
Yeah.
have that adaptability. And then responsibility is such a big one now. Like, you are responsible. Own it. Take the ownership. I tell a lot of people, no one's coming. No one's coming to save you.
No
Like,
one's coming to
it is
save you.
up to you. And then if someone does those three really well again and again, Jeff, they're proving their dependability. And this is where you and I as coach, I don't know how many times we've said this, but probably 1,000, is like, oh man, Jeff Durr, have you seen this guy? I'll take 10 more just like him. I'm not saying I need somebody who looks like you, who talks like you. I'm saying they share our values, they're
Yep.
coachable, they're adaptable, they take the responsibility, they do it again and again, they're dependable, they show up and honor their role, honor the team, dress for the job, come ready as a professional, and do it again and again and again. And I'm like, I don't care what you look like. I just need 10 of those to
Yeah.
show up, whether your name's Jeff, Teresa, Myra,
Yeah.
Buka, I don't care. This is who I need. And pro athletes get this, because
Yeah.
there's no, it's so funny. There's no diversity and inclusion in sports. You put the best person in the
Yep.
job. It's a merit system. Like,
Yeah.
we need the best person. I don't care what you look like. I don't
Yeah.
care how you dress. I don't
Yeah.
care any of it. We need results.
Yeah. Love
And
it.
as a team member, that's who I'm trying to surround myself. I want aces.
Yeah. I love that CAR acronym. That's awesome. And you hit a hit on the head. Dependable. If you can't depend on somebody, what do you got?
Well,
Nothing.
this is a big one. What you got is a lack of trust. And so
Yeah.
when you see a leader,
Mm.
who goes out and goes, well, I got to do this myself. Well, isn't Jeff the head of sales? Well, I'll take this one myself, because this is a big account. Basically, they're saying, I don't trust Jeff, and bigger, Ted Lasso, I don't believe in Jeff.
Yeah. Ted
So
Lasso.
if you don't have belief and trust in your team, what are you doing to hire? Like, you better find a way to hire people that are these aces, that are these cards, that you can believe and trust in these people, because you're going to run yourself ragged as a leader, because you're not going to be able to do it all. That's not how organizations scale. That's not how they double their value. That's not how they make big contributions in this world,
Right.
because it takes a lot of us to make big contributions.
Oh my God. It takes a team. Takes a
Amen.
team. Takes a team. Well, Trent, man, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking your time, to spend it with me, and how many other people are listening, and driving the listening ship, and the viewership, and people like you who volunteer your time to share your story is just impacting more and more people out there, and I appreciate it. And I wish you nothing but the best success and in what you're building and growing. And I'm looking forward to have you back on the show again.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm so grateful for having me in your audience. Please, everyone, reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help.